Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld News USA. I'm Jennifer Turcios. First, a quick look at top stories this evening. President Putin invites Zelensky to Moscow for security talks as strikes hit Ukraine. Florida moves to scrap all childhood vaccine mandates as Governor DeSantis unveils new health commission. Army scraps bias-focused command assessment program, returns to traditional selection boards. After violent clash at ICE facility, Portland mayor reaffirms sanctuary stance and vows no local aid to ICE. Google dodges harshest antitrust penalties as Judge Barr's exclusive deals orders limited data sharing. And now to the news. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday said he never refused to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and invited him to come to Moscow, according to state news agency TASS. Speaking in China after attending a World War II commemoration alongside Chinese leader Xi Jinping, the North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Putin said he would agree to talk if meeting were well prepared and led to some positive results. The overturn landed as Russia continued missiles and drones attacks across Ukraine. Zelensky's office did not comment, but Ukraine's foreign minister accused Moscow of offering knowingly unexpected proposals, noting 7 countries, including Austria, the Venetian, Switzerland, Turkey, and 3 Gulf states, have signaled readiness to host neutral talks. At the White House, President Donald Trump told reporters he plans to speak with Putin over the next few days, as a 2-week deadline has set last month for Kremlin to agree to a Zelensky meeting expired. Asked if there would be consequences if talks aren't announced soon, Trump said, "Yeah, there will be," without elaborating. Security experts dismissed the notion of Zelensky traveling to Russia, citing clear risk in Putin's stated aim of removing him from power. Kyiv has repeatedly said any summit must occur on neutral ground and be backed by concrete de-escalation steps, while Western allies press Moscow to halt strikes as a precondition for credible negotiation. Watch this.
As for Ukraine's membership of the EU, we were never against it. As for NATO, it's another issue. It's about ensuring the security of the Russian Federation, not only now and in the midterm perspective, but also in the long-term perspective. Our position is known. We consider it unacceptable for us. Naturally, it's Ukraine's decision how to ensure its security, but its security, as it's stated in the fundamental documents, which also include the security in Europe, can't be ensured at the expense of the security of other countries, and at the expense of Russia's security in particular. There are options to ensure the security of Ukraine in case of the end of the conflict. It was also discussed in Anchorage. I think there is a possibility to find a consensus here.
Florida will seek to phase out every state-required childhood vaccination, Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo said Wednesday, framing existing schools and child care mandates as an immoral intrusion on parental rights. He said the health department can recede some rules administratively, while others will require the Republican-led legislature approval. Governor Ron DeSantis also announced a state Make America Healthy Again, MAHA, commission chaired by Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins and First Lady Cassie DeSantis to advance a border medical freedom package next session. DeSantis said the panel will focus on informed consent, parental rights, and rolling back what he called medical orthodoxy not supported by the data. Florida currently requires shots against measles, chickenpox, hepatitis B, DTaP, polio, and other diseases for daycare and K-12 enrollment. Democrats warn eliminating mandates could trigger preventable outbreaks. This is a public health disaster in the making, State Republican Anna Escamani said. The move comes as Democratic governors in Washington, Oregon, and California announce a joint effort to align immunization guidelines with national medical groups arguing federal health policy had been politicized. DeSantis said Florida intends to stay ahead of the curve after resisting COVID-era mandates on school businesses and workers. Let's take a look.
Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right.
The U.S. Army has canceled its Command Assessment Program, CAP, a promotional process that used psychological testing, peer reviews, and bias reduction measures to select commanders. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth cheered the move, writing on X, "Good riddance. Promotions across DoD will only be based on merit and performance." Launched broadly in 2020 and made program a record under former Army Security Christy Wormuth, CAP assessed roughly 2,000 candidates a year using tools that measure cognitive ability, emotional intelligence, conscientiousness, and other traits. Interest warned, however, about 54% of eligible senior officers declined to participate last year, up from 40% in 2019. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll paused the program last month for review. The Army will revert to the centralized selection board list CSL process, in which board weighs past assignment, evaluation, and potential. CAP's credibility has been dented by the December 2024 removal of General Charles Hamilton, the head of Army Marshal Command, after an Inspector General probe found he improperly tied to aid a lieutenant colonel who failed her CAP assessment. Service officials said the change aligns with a June 20th Pentagon directive to review officers' evaluation and selection system. The Army will use CSL for upcoming command slates while the Defense Department pursues border reforms. Portland Mayor Wilson has reaffirmed the city's sanctuary policy after new round of clashes outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE facility over Labor Day. Wilson said local police will not assess federal immigration enforcement and that the city agencies will maintain distance from ICE operation. Video from the scene showed demonstrators gathering outside the facility, including a prompt guillotine followed by confrontations with federal officers who use crowd-controlled munitions to disperse the crowd. Some participants carried makeshift shields and a flag was buried. It was not immediately clear whether any arrests were made or if injuries occurred. The Portland Police Bureau said it was not involved in the incident. Wilson said his administration is coordinating with the state and congressional partners on how to manage potential flashpoints and is conducting tabletop exercises to test response plans. He emphasized that the city would not participate in joint patrol or other cooperative enforcement activity with ICE. The city stance follows a series of tense episodes at the site since June, including earlier standoffs in which federal agents used tear gas, rubber rounds, and flashbangs after protesters attempted to block facility access. In July, the City Council began exploring options to remove ICE from South waterfront locations. Watch this.
There was a bunch of nations out here trying to figure out what's going on. We're going to need to cancel our clearance.
Yeah, 2351, looks like there was plane-to-plane contact behind you to your right. I'm not sure if I can push you back yet, but I'll have you further for you as soon as I know.
Moments after a collision between two United Airlines planes at San Francisco International Airport. Labor Day travel on hold after one plane damaged another while pushing back from the gate. Passengers on the Boston-bound flight shared on social media it felt like an earthquake when the two tails collided.
I think that's probably a good description. You know, we're used to sitting in an airplane at the gate and things are very calm and quiet. And this definitely would feel very unusual. I think earthquake is probably a good description.
Thankfully, United Airlines said in a statement there were no injuries and passengers on both planes deplaned normally before they continued with their travel.
Pretty wild incident, huh?
I spoke with aviation expert Max Trescott about the collision. What happened here?
Sure. So what happened is a somewhat uncommon event, but it's not totally unheard of. What's unusual is that the aircraft hit another aircraft. Usually what happens when this occurs, and it probably happens once a year around the world, it rolls into the tug, and so there's a lot less damage.
The FAA is investigating what went wrong, but Trescott has some theories. After loading up with passengers, planes are pushed back from the gate by what's known as a tug, driven by the airline's ground controller. At this time, pilots don't have control of the plane because there is no reverse. Trescott says NTSB reports found a number of incidents due to a failure or improper maintenance of the tug, including in Australia this past July.
The news will be right back after this break.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Two United Airlines planes made contact on the ramp at San Francisco International Airport on Labor Day. The carrier said prompting inspections and rebooking, but no injuries. United said a jet being pushed back from its gate made contact with the tail of a parked United aircraft Monday night. The flights involved were UA 796 to Boston and UA 1871 to Denver. Passengers from both flights were moved to other aircraft to continue their trips. Witnesses described a brief jolt like an earthquake, and posts on social media spectacle a tow bar failure might have played a role. United did not confirm a case. The Federal Aviation Administration has opened an investigation. The incident follows a separate wingtip scrap between two United planes at SFO in May, according to the FAA. Let's take a look.
There's a bunch of things down here trying to figure out what's going on. We're going to need to cancel our clearance.
Yeah, 2351, looks like there was plane-to-plane contact behind you to your right. I'm not sure if I can push you back yet, but I'll have you further for you as soon as I know.
Moments after a collision between two United Airlines planes at San Francisco International Airport, Labor Day travel on hold after one plane damaged another while pushing back from the gate. Passengers on the Boston-bound flight shared on social media it felt like an earthquake when the two tails collided.
I think that's probably a good description. You know, we're used to sitting in an airplane at the gate and things are very calm and quiet, and this definitely would feel very unusual. I think earthquake is probably a good description.
Thankfully, United Airlines said in a statement there were no injuries and passengers on both planes deplaned normally before they continued with their travel.
Pretty wild incident, huh?
I spoke with aviation expert Max Trescott about the collision. What happened here?
Sure. So what happened is a somewhat uncommon event, but it's not totally unheard of. What's unusual is that the aircraft hit another aircraft. Usually what happens when this occurs, and it probably happens once a year around the world, it rolls into the tug, and so there's a lot less damage.
The FAA is investigating what went wrong, but Trescott has some theories. After loading up with passengers, planes are pushed back from the gate by what's known as a tug, driven by the airline's ground controller. At this time, pilots don't have control of the plane because there is no reverse. Trescott says NTSB reports found a number of incidents due to a failure or improper maintenance of the tug, including in Australia this past July.
A federal judge on Tuesday imposed narrower-than-expected remedies on Google's search business, allowing the company to keep its Chrome browser and avoid a breakup while bearing exclusive default search contracts and requiring limited data sharing with rivals. Alphabet shares rose about 8% in after-hours trading following the ruling, while Apple gained roughly 4%. The U.S. District admit Meta, who last year found Google illegally maintain a monopoly in general search under Section 2 of the Sherman Act, rejected the Justice Department's most severe proposal, including a Google and plaintiffs overreached in seeking forced divestiture of these key assets. The decision said, noting the government failed to show those products were used to effect the unlawful restraints. The court will prohibit Google from entering exclusive arrangements that locked in its search engine as a default on phones and browsers, a core focus of the government's 2020 case. But Meta stopped short of banning Google's long-standing practice of paying partners for placement. The ruling says Google may continue to make payments or other considerations for preloading and placement of Search, Chrome, or its AI products, so long as the deals aren't exclusive, citing potential substantial downstream harm to distribution partners and consumers if payments were cut off. On data access, the judge ordered Google to share certain search index and user interaction data sets with qualified partners on ordinary commercial terms, while excluding advertising data. The DOJ had pressed for broader access to the signals Google uses to rank results, arguing rivals need them to compete. The court narrowed both the scope and terms compared with what prosecutors sought. The decision followed a May remedy trial and comes nearly a year after Meta concluded Google's default deal strategy with device markers and carriers unlawfully entrenched in dominance. One high-profile partner in Apple, which receives billions annually from Google to be the default search engine on iPhones. Apple shares climb on expectations. Those payments can contribute under non-exclusive terms. Judge Meta ordered the parties to confer and submit a proposal final judgment by September 10th. Google said it will appeal and set a step that would delay enforcement of the remedy. The DOJ is expected to push for rigorous compliance monitoring as the case moves into its remedial phase. Even with the lighter touch, the ruling curtails Google's ability to secure exclusive defaults and opens a narrow data sharing channel, changes that could ease entry for smaller search competitors while preserving much of the distribution economics that underpin Google's ecosystem. Watch this.
A federal judge ruled Tuesday that Google will not have to sell its Chrome browser to remedy its search market monopoly, but the tech giant will have to share some of its data with competitors, among other legal concessions. Less than a year after Google paid $700 million to settle an antitrust lawsuit over App Store business practices, Judge Amit Mehta ruled in a separate case in 2024 that Google was a monopolist, saying the company used exclusive distribution agreements and charged, quote, supra-competitive prices for general search text ads, end quote, that led to anti-competitive behavior. A separate district judge backed Meta's findings, ruling in April that Google held a monopoly over online advertising technology. The Justice Department pushed for the sale of Chrome to remedy the rulings against Google, which said doing so would hurt the browser and its users. AI firm Perplexity made a $34.5 billion bid for the browser last month, arguing its offer was designed to remedy the situation by putting Chrome in the hands of a, quote, capable independent operator. Meta did not side with federal prosecutors who wanted Google to divest from Chrome, saying the company will not be required to sell the popular web browser. Instead, the judge ruled Google will have to provide search and user interaction data with, quote, qualified competitors. Judge Mehta said the company will have to offer search and search text ads syndication services to competitors and barred Google from entering exclusive contracts, quote, relating to the distribution of Google Search, Chrome, Google Assistant, and the Gemini app.
The Federal Trade Commission had asked Disney to pay $10 million civil penalty and overhaul how it labels videos on YouTube after regulators alleged the company allowed children's data to be collected for targeted ads in violation of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA. At issue was Disney's repetitive failure to flag certain child-directed clips as made for kids, a YouTube designation that triggers COPPA safeguards and disables features like targeted advertising comments and autoplay. According to the FTC complaint, YouTube alerted Disney in June 2020 that roughly 300 videos tied to family franchises such as The Incredibles, Coco, Toy Story, Tangled, and Frozen were misclassified. Regulators say additionally mislabeling presented over the next 2 years. Disney, which receives a share of ad revenue on its YouTube content and also sells some ads directly, sometimes protested kid-focused material to channels set as not made for kids, the filing says. Under the settlement, Disney will establish and maintain an audience-designated program to ensure all YouTube uploads are properly categorized and will adopt mandated video review process. The FTC also signals support for age assurance tools that would identify viewers' ages at the platform level, potentially reducing reliance on per video tagging in the future. Disney said the argument does not involve its own apps or websites and reiterates its commitment to compliance. The action builds on a 2019 case in which YouTube and parent Google paid $150 million and instituted the Made for Kids labeling system to address COPPA violation. Let's take a look.
And Disney will pay a $10 million FTC fine for mislabeling some YouTube videos as not for kids. The error allowed the collection of data and targeted ads for children under 13. The FTC says Disney ignored warnings from 2020, exposing kids to ads and adults features like autoplay. Under the settlement, Disney will launch a video review program to ensure proper labeling going forward.
The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
Chris, in 1 Billion Homes Project, is all about making sure the voice of our man of God, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, arrives exactly when someone needs it the most. It's a global campaign to saturate the world with the gospel of our Lord Jesus like never before.
The gospel is going to go into places that it never was before, into disciplines and areas that it never was before, and establish a higher way of life.
Make a global impact today with your sponsorship of Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. For every home you sponsor, you send the gospel where it's never gone. You become the reason someone receives life, a second chance, and finds Jesus. Through the dynamic Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project, we've been able to expand our global mission, touching more souls, more regions, and producing a wave of powerful testimonies from people whose lives have been forever changed. Your financial support as a Loveworld USA partner is not just generous, it's supernatural power for global impact. Let's keep sending the gospel into every home through the Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. Sign up today and sponsor any of the following categories.
It's time for you to give the right sacrifice, the right seed, because it's time for you to get the right harvest.
You can sponsor Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project by calling or going on our website now. Sign up to be Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project partner today. God bless you.
China has marked the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II with a sweeping military parade in Beijing that showed hypersonic anti-ship missiles, underwater drones, fighter jets, and bombers, hardware Taiwan views as directly relevant to any contingency in the Taiwan strike. flanked by Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, on top of Chinese leader Xi Jinping, praised wartime veterans and cast today's China as self-reliant and strong. He lauded the People's Liberation Army as a force the party can trust and rely on, and said its task is to safeguard China's sovereignty and unification, language Taiwan typically reads as signaling pressure on self-ruled island. From Taipei, President William Lai answered with a values-first message. Taiwan does not use barrel of a gun to commemorate peace, he wrote, saying the island recalls the martyrs, remembers the lessons of history, and upholds the belief in freedom and democracy. Regional unease shadowed the spectacle. The PLA hypersonic system highlighted a ship killer, and a new DF-61 international ballistic missile drew particular attention. Hypersonics are a concern for the U.S. 7th Fleet, which could figure predominantly in any crisis near Taiwan, proximity in any crisis near Taiwan. In the Philippines, Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro called the public alignment of Xi, Putin, and Kim intimidation and a threat to smaller nations. In Washington, President Donald Trump used social media to jab the trio and said he would weigh next steps on Russia's war in Ukraine over the next few days. For Beijing, the meticulous choreographed parade reinforced Communist Party legitimacy at home and projected confidence abroad for Taiwan. It was another reminder that commemorations in China often double as strategic messages, and that Taipei answer will continue to stress democratic resolve over military threats. Watch this.
To mark the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, Taiwan has sharply criticized this display, accusing China of spending the equivalent of 2% of its defense budget, more than 36 billion yuan or $5 billion, to project military power and quote-unquote rewrite history. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council has stated that Beijing was falsely claiming credit for wartime victories fought largely by the Republic of China, whose government later fled to Taiwan after the Civil War. Remember, it was the Republic of China and its representative who had signed the Cairo Agreement in 1936.
EU governments will vote on a long-negotiated trade deal with South America's Mercosur bloc after the European Commission added legally binding protections for European farmers. The agreement with Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay would create a free trade area covering about 700 million people, with Mercosur phasing out tariffs at 91% of EU goods, including 35% car duties, while the UE opens further to farm exports such as beef, sugar, honey, and soy. France and Poland has warned cheaper imports could undercut EU producers, but Paris calls the new guarantees a step in the right direction. Warsaw says it will oppose the pact, yet expects it to advance. Approval requires backing from at least 15 to 27 member states and the European Parliament. Germany is pushing to seal the deal quickly, arguing Europe needs new partners aimed at U.S. tariffs and growing competition for South American markets. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the pact will cut costs immediately for UE firms and agri-food exports, pointing to a crisis reserve of 6.3 pounds and a snapback tool to suspend preferential access on sensitive farm goods like beef if markets are disrupted. Farms groups remain skeptical. Copa Cogeca called the called the accord economically and politically damaging, while Italy's government said it will consult stakeholders first. Brussels farmers the argument as strategic, boosting EU sales and car commercials and machinery, and securing access to crucial minerals such as lithium, while reducing reliance on China and cushioning the impact of current US-EU tariff frictions. Trade chief said Commission hopes for approval by year end. At the end of today's news, a quick recap of today's headline. President Putin invites Zelensky to Moscow for security talks and strikes hit Ukraine. Florida moves to scrap all childhood vaccine mandates as Governor DeSantis unveils new health commission. Army scraps bias-focused command assessment program returns to traditional selection boards after violent clash at ICE facility. Poland mayor reaffirms sanctuary stings, vows no local aid to ICE. Google dodges harshest antitrust penalties as judge bars exclusive deals, ordered limited data sharing. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Jennifer Turcios. Good night and God bless you.